I love it. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March land use meeting. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
You are being heard.
Thank you. It was a delayed reaction. I'm sorry. I'm having some issues with connectivity, so I want you guys to forgive me. As you can tell, I've been having a rough day. So hopefully we'll find this meeting informative, enjoyable, something that we'll be able to communicate with one another, make contributions to our community by our volunteer work. So I'm going to just take a quick browse to see who's here. I'm going to remind you we have 3 projects that are to present today, and this is a non-voting meeting. Non-voting, we're just receiving information. So I'm going to ask, is the applicant here for 953 Dean Street? Do we have a representative from 953 Dean Street? Okay. So then, hold on one second. Okay, so I'm going to ask if there are representatives, which I can see in the room, from 962 Pacific Street. Hello?
Yes,
Would
indeed.
you like to present first?
How about that? Nadine, where are you at? Yes, I have some slides. Will I be allowed to share my screen?
Absolutely, Nadine.
Okay,
Hi,
excellent.
can you hear me? Whoops.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Now I can.
Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you.
If you would like, Nadine, I can start the slide share.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you, Leah. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you for having us here. As you know, my name is Nadine Olsner, and I'm the owner of 962 Pacific Street. Tonight, I'm here with our partners, Leah Archibald, who is an executive director, and Stephen Fabian, who's the real estate program manager of Evergreen Exchange. We are happy to be back and presenting to Community Board 8 Land Use Committee about potential MX uses. In slide 2, as previously presented to all of you, 962 Pacific Street will provide close to 30,000 square feet of M-Crown uses, made up of approximately 20,000 square feet of manufacturing M-Crown space and a 10,000 square foot early childhood educational center, also an M-Crown use. In slide 3, you will see a picture of the early childhood center. The center will provide high quality and affordable care for working families within the surrounding community. In the last slide, you will see the home for M-Crown. This is currently the entire cellar level of the building. Nearly 20,000 square feet is contemplated for M-Crown. And to help us curate the space, we have forged a partnership with industrial advocate Evergreen Exchange to advise us on what industrial users currently need space in the area and with a focus on providing job opportunities to residents. Through thoughtful design, we believe we can create a ground floor entrance into the space worthy of local bakers and job providers that elevates their standing in the neighborhood, and have added rear yard skylights that allow for natural light to flow into many of their workspaces. We have been attending all of the AIM Up engagement sessions, and we have listened to the community's comments and concerns. We have learned a great deal. We are excited that our project largely conforms to what the community is talking about and desires to have built. This is heartwarming and affirming to us. As you know, AIM Up has an MX component, and since we have not had time to discuss the industrial uses, we thought it would be beneficial to have our partners at Evergreen present potential MX uses. We are joined tonight by Leah Archibald, Executive Director, and Stephen Fabian, Real Estate Project Manager of Evergreen Exchange. We'll walk you through their presentation and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have about the M-Crown component. Thank you.
Thanks you. Thank you. Let's see. Now we've got to get to the other screen share. I now want to stop sharing that. And now I want to share this guy. I don't know how to expand this. I'm so sorry, you guys. Is it can you see my screen? Is it legible? Okay, great. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Leah Archibald. I'm the executive director of Evergreen, and we are the local development corporation that works with businesses in industrial North Brooklyn. I am joined here with my colleague, Stephen Fabian. Stephen, will you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Stephen Fabian, also at Evergreen, and as Nadine mentioned, I am the real estate program manager.
So a little bit about our organization. We just celebrated our 40th anniversary, 40 years of working with small manufacturers to help grow high quality working class jobs in our community. We have a variety of funding sources. Some are with city and state contracts and some philanthropic support and some revenues from our real estate operation, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We have a board comprised of small business owners, and our tiny staff of five serve nearly 300 unique businesses a year. In recent years, we have become a very small nonprofit industrial real estate developer. And really what that means is we have been developing small buildings that we lease out to small manufacturers at affordable rates so that we can, continue to keep working class jobs in our community. And Stephen is in charge of that programming. And that's largely what the reason that Nadine invited us to, advise them on the industrial portion of their development and to come speak with you guys tonight. So a little bit about what we do. We help businesses in a variety of ways. We have educational offerings for small businesses, one-off workshops, multi-week seminars. We help businesses access incentive programs. We help them find financing. We help them find appropriate real estate. We advocate on community-wide issues that impact businesses and provide a number of other services. So we do this because we believe that manufacturing jobs are a high quality form of employment for Brooklyn's residents, frequently with much lower barriers to entry than many other professions. And I'll let Stephen talk a little bit about some of the economic and demographic information.
Sure, thank you. So it might be a bit hard to see but basically what these infographics show is that these jobs have, as Leah said, are high quality and low barrier of entry. And these are specific to North Brooklyn, where we're most active, but I have some information about the county of Brooklyn at large as well. And, I think that would be somewhat, it shows the trends that are happening. So, in North Brooklyn, we have 25% of our population below the poverty line. And it's really important for these low income residents, and many of which who are foreign born, 20%, and 28 of them are coming from another country. So when you don't have native English speaking skills, it's good to have accessible jobs. Also, 1/3 of the workforce is non-white. So we find that low income, minority, and those without college degrees have a great chance at economic mobility by having manufacturing jobs. And the other really important thing is that there are good benefits besides the wages, which we'll talk about on the next slide. You can see the breakdown for North Brooklyn, which shows that 70% of industrial jobs have benefits compared to 58% of retail and 44% of a combination of food service. For Brooklyn as a county, we find that 52% of industrial jobs have benefits, 45% retail, and 36% a combination of food service. So it really goes to show that industrial kind of leads the way when talking about low barrier of entry jobs. And just for some context, industrial jobs in Brooklyn grew by 33% since 2002, which is very significant. It's really predominantly led by things like transportation, construction, wholesale. But the 33% far outpaces the 3.5% industrial growth for the city at large. So not only is there a benefit to industrial, Brooklyn is actually a really strong place for it that we've seen. Speaking of manufacturing, while it's not explosively growing, it's stabilized and in fact did start to grow since 2010. So in the past decade, basically 50 years of prior economic trends were reversed because as we all know, the decline of manufacturing began roughly 50 years ago. So it's led by the sectors of food, beverage, fabricated metals, machinery, electrical equipment, and furniture. These are all the strong growing manufacturing sectors that happen to also provide good jobs. In the next slide, this is a chart that is pulled from 2021 countywide data provided by New York State Department of Labor in their quarterly employment census and workforce polls. So you can see that I pulled sort of the broad sectors that relate to industrial as well as a few for retail and combination food services. And they're sort of ordered from greatest wage to lowest. This is an annual wage, it's average. So there is going to be some skewing, but based on what was easily available, that's what we use. So at the top, we have utilities, which is really quite high and probably unrepresentative of what the average entry-level worker is going to find. But sort of the point remains that, you know, things like construction, wholesale trade, manufacturing, they have higher annual wages on average than just literally the average of all industries in the county, which is $50,000. So those are above 50,000. Then you can see retail trade comes in below at 46, the combination at 32. Transportation is down here as well, but actually 2021 was the first time in 20 years that retail surpassed transportation. So we just think that these jobs, you know, are available and they're good, well paying. So that's why it's become our mission over the past 40 years to try to protect and promote them. And so we're happy to partner with Nadine and Bill to try to do that in your neighborhood. And so we know that this area has spent a lot of thought on what would be appropriate. And through the M-Crown plan, you know, we looked at what relates to manufacturing specifically. So this project would be considered a side street project as opposed to an avenue project in the plan's distinction. And also the manufacturing segment would be an inclusion rather than sort of the majority use, right? So the majority use is going to be housing. So looking at the rubric, I pulled out what are all the acceptable proposed uses in the M-Crown schematic. And so in gray, we have ones that, you know, really don't have any industrial connection for the most part. So these would be use groups 3, 4, those are both community facilities, 7D, which is more of like home maintenance and repair and auto service, and then large retail in 12B. The orange groups are they could go really either direction. They could go industrial or they could go commercial. There's just such a wide range. So this is where you see home maintenance and repair in a context of retail and service. This is amusement and wide service establishments. So retail and service that draws on a larger area than just the local neighborhood. Then there's also retail and service that is focused on caterers, laboratories, printers, and studios in use group 9. And then lastly, the group 10 is the studios-based retail. And then finally, on the right side, we have the green uses. These are all strongly industrial. So use group 11, high value, low impact manufacturing. That's going to be a lot of what I was just saying has been growing, you know, the food and beverage, the light furniture, fabrication of metals in a small scale setting. Use group 16 includes auto service and wholesale, but no self-storage. Use 17A and B are really strong manufacturing. This is where you might see something like contractor yards, meat markets, and then everything that everyone thinks about when they think of, you know, really true manufacturing. And then finally, 18A would be industrial manufacturing limited to beverages and breweries. And that is something that honestly really has continued to boom. We always joke that there's, you know, the last brewery is opened and there's another one and another one. And, you know, in a mixed use context, while it depends on what works with the housing and the residents, it does kind of have a benefit in that the production can mix with a retail element to draw people to the area and also maybe afford a rent that can be found in a higher level development. But, you know, again, context is going to really matter, which is why in the next slide, as Leah's going to discuss, you know, it's not just about any old industrial use.
And right, and that's the thing. So you can see kind of like, you know, the funnel that we put, you know, all of the M Crown uses in, and then the ones that were, you know, that were industrial, that we knew were going to have high quality jobs that align with the mission of our organization. And then, you know, getting down to the bottom of the funnel, what are the ones that are going to work best within the context of both this development, but also the block and the neighborhood. And so we wanted to focus on the uses that would be best suited to being in a mixed use building and block. So sometimes, you know, sometimes manufacturing businesses pose a nuisance for upstairs neighbors, right? There's vibration, there's noise, smells, loading can be disruptive. So, you know, what we did was went through the uses that we're familiar with and the ones that we know that there's a demonstrated demand for. And, you know, some of the sample uses that we came up with would be garment design and production, repair and refabrication services, jewelry making, some home goods fabrication, some small scale woodworking, maybe not all of it depending, but some, and then some small scale food production uses. So those were the uses that we identified that have the best chance for success in this mixed commercial, industrial, residential building and within the context of this mixed use block. So we are here to answer any questions that you may have about this or anything else we might know about industrial uses.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
We can't hear you.
I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, but hold on one second. So I just wanted to remind everybody that if they want to ask a question or they have a comment to make, they can raise their hands virtually, you know, using the WebEx function to raise hands, as Ms. Tyus did. You can wave on the screen or you can give me an audible signal. So Ms. Tice, you have clearly gotten my attention. You may ask the first question.
Thank you. I just want to bring in our colleague, Gib Bocconi, who's been very instrumental in knitting together this concept. And I think there are two things that we want to bring to the AIM Up process. One, there are ways to attract potential businesses to these target areas, these target uses. And I'm going to have to turn it back to Gib to go into that. And I was wondering if Evergreen went over that concept of how do you attract these uses and facilitate the actualization of these goals for M-Crown.
So Ethel,
Yes.
Ms. Levitt had her hand raised, and with her permission, I'll call on Mr. Bocconi. Ms. Levitt?
So Mr. Bocconi can go first?
Thank
Sorry,
you.
Ms.
Yes, thank you so much.
Of course.
Gib?
Hi there. I just wanted to make a couple of brief points. First of all, in answer to Ms. Tyus's question, one of the key ways you attract these industries to a place like the M-Crown District and Community District 8 is to have space that's affordable to them, which is, of course, a core goal of the M-Crown initiative. The cross subsidy of light manufacturing space for these sorts of employers is a core goal of M-Crown, and always has been. The other point I wanted to make, which I doubt would be obvious to most folks, looking at the slide that Fabian presented with the uses on that are color coded, is that our sort of master list of M-Crown uses was developed in a way with some of the objections the Department of City Planning had made about use restrictions in mind. In other words, it's more flexible and has more opportunity in it for some things that aren't necessarily as much in the sweet spot as some of the uses that were discussed earlier. And that was because we were trying to demonstrate to the Department of City Planning some flexibility, that they shouldn't be scared of the idea of use restrictions. As a strategy to help get their support, that was a complete failure. That actually did not get any particular level of support. And quite frankly, I'm not sure to what extent they do or do not support the idea of doing something like Gowanus Mix here in Crown Heights even today, where that's yet to be seen from things that will come from the AIM Up process. But I wanted to just explain why some of those other categories are in the M-Crown master list of uses. It was more an attempt to try to demonstrate flexibility and good faith than to preference those. And I think the uses that have been highlighted in the Evergreen presentation are very, very helpful to understand what we could realistically hope to achieve in the M-Crown zone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bocconi. Ms. Levitt?
Hello, thank you. Good evening. Yeah, my one thought was thinking about food production, some of these ideal uses, as well as the early childhood center. I'm wondering if there might be an opportunity to use or preserve outdoor space, the rear yards, as some kind of mixed public space in terms of food, like urban farming, but also if there's a way to think flexibly about urban farming that could also be public recreational use. And if there's a chance that Nadine Olsner and the other parties that have some influence here are interested in exploring ways to use some of the M-Crown space as like public recreation space, frankly. It could also be industrial, but as I said, like related to food production, even things like bees, for example, as projects that could somehow be I'm just wondering actually out loud about how the tenant structure might work and if there might be opportunities for or how the community members that are not necessarily tenants of this new building might be able to take advantage of the rear yards in particular.
I think that one's for you, Nadine. We can't hear you though.
I can't find that hand thing, so I apologize.
No
Ella,
worries.
Ella, thank you for bringing that up. Several months ago, you brought that up also, and we all had decided that we would open up the garden that we have for the building would be opened up to other people within the area on certain days and times. And we also attended the AIM Up session that just occurred about 2 weeks ago. And open space was a big issue. And we heard that from everyone. And we are trying to work with certain urban planners and figure out what we could do on other parcels. But I hear you. And we are trying to make that work. We understand that's an important issue for the community. So thank you. And thank you for bringing it up again.
Thank you, Nadine. Any other people have questions? Any other questions?
May I give one partial answer for Ms. Tyus's question?
Go ahead, Leah.
Just about how we attract businesses, right? And Gib hit the nail on the head. If there's affordable space, they will want to be there. We continue to see demand from small manufacturers, and ones that might be a real nice fit in this mixed use structure, that we can accommodate in our own buildings, that we try and help find space for. And there's a network of organizations like ours throughout the city, and we try and collaborate to help one another, help our businesses. So we've got a whole network, a referral network of other industrial business solutions providers, so that when somebody has a business client that needs space, we can share these among ourselves and try and help them find the space that's most appropriate. So hopefully hopefully the availability and quality and affordability of the space, along with our network of referring small businesses, will be helpful in attracting businesses there.
Thank you, Leah.
Oh, and I think I would just add that the other thing that we see too is a lot of these businesses draw locally. So, I think the Olseners would be very open if there are businesses already here, that we don't have that expertise as Evergreen. We're in North Brooklyn, but I think that it's a kind of space that could be available to people that are already here looking to expand and grow too. I think not just we have a lot of partners that we work with all the time around the city, but I think the local context is important to mention as well.
Thank you, Stephen. Ms. Tyus, I see your hand is raised again.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I just wanted to ask Mr. Fabian about his approach to the data for construction jobs. As I see it for this community district, I'm not sure if he's speaking of licensed construction trades or not. And I think a really good idea for AIM Up, or whatever we're calling it now, is to ask each one of these developers to hire, to have their contractors, their builders, hire one trainee for each one of the licensed construction trades that will be employed on their project. As a way to open up those well-paying job opportunities to people who live here now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethel. Gib?
So somewhat piggybacking on Ms. Tyus's comment, one of the things that's being discussed as part of the AIM Up economic development topic is the idea of workforce development, and that's something that hopefully will come out of that process as a citywide commitment as a part of the larger rezoning. But this project, what's being proposed here for this project clearly could also be a target for folks coming out of a workforce development program of the type that's being proposed by AIM Up. I was at the workforce development public meeting, and there was definitely a lot of discussion about the importance of that set of services as a part of the neighborhood plan.
If you've not already met my friend and colleague, Larry Rothschild at the St. Nick's Alliance, he'd be a great guy for you to talk with. They have a really robust construction training program and have successfully partnered with developers to really get neighborhood folks into training and into jobs. They've had some very, very successful engagement with the Domino development in terms of workforce development. So if you're looking at a model, I would happily introduce you to Larry to talk with him about that.
Thank you.
And just to answer the question about the data, so I don't have 100% expertise on it because some of these data sources are kind of hard to fully wrap your head around exactly what's going into them. But my guess is that because it's a very broad category, so if you noticed in the chart, in the wage chart, each one had like a 2-digit number as a code. So that if anyone wanted to look them up, those are what's called NAICS, NAICS codes. And when it only has 2 digits, that's a very broad arrangement of those sectors. So you can go as far as 5 digits. So I believe I would have to look it up, and I can do that, and we can email some folks afterwards. But
Mr. Fabian, please share with everyone what NAICS are.
Oh, sure. So I'll type it in the chat.
Thank you.
The industry code.
Yeah, so every job has something called a NAICS code, right? It's how they get classified. And so in the presentation, I put, it's a 5-digit code. And the first 2 digits are what creates sort of the broad categories. And then each subsequent digit makes it more and more specialized. So with the data that I pulled was only on a 2-digit level. So that was number 33. Well, maybe it's not 33, but it was 33 is manufacturing. But the one for construction, then it starts with 2 numbers. And then so like, when you add the third number, maybe that distinguishes, plumbing versus, the different trades, right? So like, I don't remember exactly how it would all break down because I only looked at the 2 digits, but I believe that would be inclusive of all the, not just contracting, but all the trades is within that. But I'll have to go back and look for sure because I'm not 100% certain.
So it's the American Industrial Classification System, if I remember correctly, something like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Every
right.
business has a category that it fits in.
Just want to make sure everybody has level set knowledge because we are acronym city if you are sitting
Right
on
on.
language.
Yes.
I hear
Sorry
that.
about that.
So hold on 1 second. I am not seeing any more raised hands, so I'm going to say last call for this particular property, 962 Pacific. Up. Hold on 1 second. Gib, go ahead.
Just one quick question for Nadine. I just kind of was interested if you could give us just a bit of an update of where your application stands now with the Department of City Planning.
Okay, thank you, Gib. We're still in pre-URLIP, and we have submitted our environmental review that's been submitted to the Department of City Planning and EARD, and we're in a waiting mode right now. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, it's just a clarification. You're waiting on city planning to take action on your environmentals now and certify?
We're waiting for the Department of City Planning to certify and get a ULURP number. We do not have a ULURP number yet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and thank you.
Thank you
Um,
very much.
You're welcome. We are always glad to see that we're interacting with the community when a project comes to us.
Thank you for
So-
allowing us to present. Thank you.
Anytime, Nadine. Well, I won't say anytime, but we do not look askance upon your presence. So I'm going to call, I wanted to know if there was a representative here from 953 Dean Street. Okay, 953 Dean Street. Then we're going to move on to the next project, 1720 Atlantic Avenue. Are the representatives here?
Yes, how are you?
Hello. Introduce yourself to the committee, please.
Sure, I just want to make sure that my client Sali Bawabe is here as well.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, perfect, then we're ready to go. Can I share my screen?
So introduce yourself, tell us in what capacity you're working with this, and then share your screen.
You got it. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jay Goldstein. Thank you for having us tonight. I'm a zoning attorney representing Sali Bawabe and Bawabe Realty, the owners of the property at 1720 Atlantic Avenue. And I'd love to share the screen and then have Sali introduce himself, or you can have Sali introduce himself now, and then I'll share the screen after and get started with the presentation.
Yeah, I could go. How are you? Does everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we do.
Oh, great. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Sali Deepawabe. Thank you all for taking the time to meet with us. I requested this meeting so that I may introduce myself and discuss an idea for a property my family has owned for many years. We would like to present a brief outline of the proposed project and seek comments and feedback from the community board to develop a property that will benefit the neighborhood. Bawabe Realty Holdings is a family business that my father and uncle started in 1985. They began by developing small mixed-use properties along Flatbush Avenue and Fulton Street in Bed-Stuy. Over the years, our focus has shifted to building retail and educational buildings in neighborhoods such as East Flatbush, Brownsville, Bed-Stuy, East New York. We pride ourselves on building long-term relationships with our tenants and community partners. In fact, most of our tenants have more than one location with us. In 2008, we worked hard to get the Bed-Stuy Gateway bid approved along Fulton Street. Tonight, we would like to discuss the property located at 1720 Atlantic Avenue, corner of Schenectady. This property is currently a one-story commercial retail building. As you'll hear tonight from our lovely attorney, Jay, our goal is to develop this site in a manner that prioritizes ground floor retail, community facility, as well as residential space. This development will not only activate the Atlantic Avenue corridor, but provide much needed housing and space for community use. We are not yet in the formal land use review process. However, hopefully, this is the first of many conversations that will allow us to create a development that will benefit everyone. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to your feedback. I'd like to turn this over to Jay to make his presentation.
Okay, thank you, Sali. So now for the screen. Please just let me know that you can see it.
Yep.
Okay. So good evening again. My name is Jay Goldstein. I'm here on behalf of the Bawabe family. The project, as you can see a rendering of, is for a redevelopment for a zoning map amendment, text amendment to allow an MIH option 1, as well as a text amendment to allow for sidewalk widening along Atlantic Avenue. The premises is 1720 Atlantic Avenue, which is a combination of 3 zoning lots, and it currently has a one-story manufacturing building. Not manufacturing building, a one-story commercial building in a manufacturing zone. It's a one-story strip mall that has a number of smaller retail spaces within it, including Golden Krust and Dollar Tree and Dunkin' Donuts. The proposal would seek to change the development site has 270 feet of frontage along Atlantic Avenue, 200 feet of frontage on Schenectady Avenue, and 210 feet of frontage along Pacific Street. The project itself has 48,000 square feet of lot area. The proposal before you would be to change the M11 district, which has been in place since 1961, and create a number of smaller districts. So along Atlantic Avenue, where we believe you can have more density, we'd be proposing a C44D zoning district, which is an R8A equivalent. It would permit us to have residential up to 7.2 FAR, community facility up to 6.5 FAR, and commercial up to 3.4 FAR. The corner of Schenectady and Pacific would be R7A with a C24 overlay. This would be approximately 10,000 square feet and would have a residential allowance of 4.6 FAR, commercial community facility of 4.0, and commercial of 2 FAR. And the final piece of the lot would be that corner. It would be the 110 by 100 or 11,000 and change square foot portion of the property that's on Pacific Street. And that would be limited to an R7A district with no commercial allowances. It would allow for 4.6 FAR residential as well as 4.0 for community facility. And the reason we chose to go this route of having multiple zoning districts on our property is so that the property itself would provide a transition between Atlantic Avenue and the R6 district that's to the south of us along Pacific and Schenectady. We believe that this will allow us to have a building that can be set back with multiple heights and multiple stories, so that you don't have a large mass in the R or facing the R6, and it provides just more detail and texture to the building so that it's an added feature to the neighborhood. The existing development, as mentioned, is this one-story strip mall. It has 48,000 square feet of lot area, but only built to 29,000 square feet of floor area. So it's utilizing about half of its potential. It has 45 parking spaces. The proposal, as you can see on the right, would allow for a building that has multiple setbacks, but ranging in heights from 4 stories to 13 stories. Really, the height of 10, 12, 13 stories would be focused on Atlantic Avenue. The building portion on Pacific Street would be limited to a maximum of 9 stories, but we're proposing 8 stories along Atlantic. The proposal would have the ability to build 263,000 square feet of floor area. It would be a mix of community facility, commercial, and residential. So the first 2 floors is about 67,000 square feet, would really be focused and is really a blank slate at this point. So the idea would be to activate Atlantic Avenue and activate Schenectady. But the reason we're here tonight is really to open up a dialogue with the community and see what uses they felt was most appropriate for the site. Various commercial aspects, various community facility uses. Some things that we were contemplating was to have a large fresh supermarket, or alternatively to have some sort of medical urgent care and or a community facility for educational, school, or elder care of the like. So we really turned to the community board for guidance on this, and that's why we're coming here before ULURP, before this project's really fully developed, to come and discuss the project and see how this can be a benefit to my client, but also a benefit to the community and something that's a positive, that provides a positive element to the community. Above the first 2 floors, you'd have the residential from floors 3 to 13. It's about 195,000 square feet of developable floor area. The total number of units will change depending on the unit makeup and the unit counts and the sizes. So we haven't fleshed that out yet because, again, we wanted to hear from the community board to determine what size units they thought more appropriate. At the outset, our intention is, or our idea was that percentage of the unit should be studio and 1 bedrooms to focus on elderly individuals or young couples or young people that are starting out working and needs smaller units, and then a number of 2 bedroom and 3 bedrooms to accommodate families so that they can really take root and live in this neighborhood and stay in this neighborhood. So again, you'll have 195,000 square feet from the 3rd floor to the 13th floor, but as you can see, it is staggered. Commercial and community facility between the 1st and 2nd floor would be about 67,000 square feet. And then on the first floor, as well as in the cellar, we would have parking spaces to accommodate. The 112 spaces is the max required if we max out the building with the number of units, small units without regard for the unit mix that we have actually intend. The site itself is serviced by a number of subway, LIR, and bus lines. The A and the C train is about a 6-minute walk. There's the 3 and the 4 train is about a 10-minute walk. The Long Island Railroad also is about a 15-minute walk to the Nostrand Avenue stop, and there are bus routes running north-south. Here you can see a rendering of the property if you're looking at the corner of Schenectady and Atlantic Avenue, and you can see that the frontage along both Schenectady and Atlantic Avenue is proposed to be open. The idea here is that we've widened the sidewalks and we're proposing to have an open feel to really activate it, both for security reasons, but also because it beautifies the neighborhood. And with this application, with this development, will also be required, and we'll be planting street trees along the street frontages, so that you'll have new plantings and new trees that don't exist currently that can really beautify the neighborhood. Here's a view of the building, as you can see, from the corner of Schenectady and Pacific. And here is a view of the building if you're looking at it from across Atlantic. So we went into, we did take a lot of time to really design this so that it wouldn't be just a mass on Atlantic Avenue or a mass on Schenectady. The setbacks and the contrasting colors and the windows and the porches were done so that it creates a softer building, so that you have less of an impact on the neighborhood as just a mass, and it adds beauty and benefit to the neighborhood. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. We are here again. This is not ULURP. This is an initial meeting with the community board, one of many that we hope, where we gain information and gain guidance from the community board with regard to what they think the community needs and how we can benefit the community by this building and through this building. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Kim, go ahead.
Hi, thanks. Could you please just review the density that you're considering for Atlantic Avenue, Pacific Street, and Schenectady Avenue?
Sure. So for Atlantic Avenue, it would be a C44D, which is the R8A equivalent. It would have the potential of up to 7.2 FAR for residential, up to 6.5 for community facility, and up to 3.4 for commercial.
Okay, and along Schenectady?
Along Schenectady, so the first 100 feet from Atlantic down Schenectady would be the same C44D. The next 100 feet to the corner of Pacific would be the R7A with the C24. And that drastically reduces your residential FAR to 4.6, your community facility down to 4.0, and your commercial down to 2.
Okay. I mean, one comment, just a general comment I would make about this is I think maybe a bunch of folks probably understand this already, but an application like this that would move forward would definitely have a precedent and would establish kind of a direction for an area of M11 that stretches 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 blocks down Atlantic Avenue. And it's a very, I mean, I think it's interesting to see a proposal like this come forward, but I also believe the community board would really need to consider this from the perspective of what would be likely to happen on lots in the same zone if this project was to move forward. And this is not we haven't looked at this particular M1 zone. You've heard you might have heard some of the previous presentation. We've clearly spent a lot of time thinking about the M1 zone that's further west of here. And so I guess I will, I'll ask a couple of questions that kind of relate to things we've expressed as a desire in that M1 zone. One of them is, in terms of uses, Are you interested in supporting uses of the type that we heard about before from the presenters from Evergreen, who spoke about accessible jobs that pay a decent wage and represent a career opportunity for folks that don't have a college degree? Would you be interested in entertaining a commitment for providing some space for those types of uses?
So yeah, again, as mentioned, we have a substantial amount of commercial community facility space that's a blank slate. So
I'm not talking about commercial and community facility, by the way. I think you understand that.
no, I understand that you're talking about, but I'm mentioning that area as something that we're here to listen to the M Crown, listen to those proposals, take it back and implement them and incorporate them into our project.
Okay.
We
And
would.
then I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the commercial and community facility availability, which is the blank slate, is something that I just mentioned as that's the direction we're looking. The community board feedback is what we want so that we can take that and explore those options and implement them if where applicable.
And I think, we would be happy to kind of point you in the direction of some of the work that the community board has done up to now, and you could have a look at that. And then the other thing I'd want to ask is if you've thought at all about the affordable housing component of your proposal. Obviously this would be a residential upzoning subject to MIH. What are your thoughts there? I will say that in private applications in the M-Crown zone, the community board has tended to seek commitments that go beyond what would be otherwise available as of right through a neighborhood rezoning under MIH. We've tended to focus on deep affordability, MIH option 4. Is that something that you'd have a desire to support?
So again, that's one of the things we came to discuss. We haven't gotten that into it yet because we want to take it as a whole. We want to view the request from the community board for the uses of the commercial or the manufacturing uses, see what that is coupled with what the residential requests are, and then crunch numbers and see, how we can accommodate as many of these requests as possible. So nothing's off the table. Again, this is the first meeting prior to any ULURP early on in the process so that we can hear this, take it back, look at those numbers, and really see if we can implement it and to what degree we can implement it.
Okay. Well, thank you. I just for the benefit of the committee members, I mean, I think it's very significant to hear a proposal like this, that there's this type of interest in this zone in the district, and we should probably figure out as a committee how we want to proceed with thinking about this area in a way that's kind of similar and holistic as we've considered the M-Crown area. That's just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you. So next is Fior, and after Fior, it's Kathy.
Thank you.
Fior.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know that Gib asked about affordability, but I wanted to get a bit more specific. Do you have price ranges for studios and one-bedroom apartments?
We don't have yet because that'll be guided by the affordability aspect.
Okay,
So once we figure out that, it's also there's the affordability will determine which range we go in for how many percentage of the building. It'll really determine all of that. So I think it's premature. Just on our end, we didn't have a chance to look at it because we don't have.
Okay, so I can understand it's a bit premature, but if you're coming to us wanting to get our opinion and asking us what the community needs, we can't tell you because you honestly can't give us an honest answer. You said that the majority of the apartments would be studios and one bedroom. That's not what the community needs. We love our seniors deeply, but we need apartments for families. And if you're going to have studios and one bedroom for $2,500 and $3,000, our seniors can't afford that.
Right. So that's not the intent. Actually, what I mentioned in the proposal is that we'll have some studios and some one bedrooms for the elderly and for the younger couples, but also that we want to focus on 2 bedrooms as well to have family-sized units so that people can stay in the neighborhood. As to affordability, we're proposing MIH option 1, but obviously knowing the community board, doing our research, we have come to you to discuss it so that we can come back to you with our proposal. As I mentioned to Mr. Bocconi, We'll come back, after seeing all of the requests, we'll put together our numbers and come back and say, we can do this. This is what we can commit to. So we're not here to do anything but listen to the concerns and incorporate them into our project as much as possible.
Okay, and lastly, again, with the amounts of studios and one bedrooms, that creates a transit community, and that's what we're trying to stay away from. And that includes the increase of gentrification and the loss of culture in the neighborhood. So please keep that in mind.
Right, absolutely. Our focus is not for a transient neighborhood. We're trying to create a building that will be a benefit to this community, a community that Mr. Bawabi has been in for a very long time.
Thank you, Fior. I'd like to just review the next speakers. Following Fior is Kathy, Gail, Sarah, Devon, and Gail. Oh, sorry, I mentioned Gail twice. So let me do that again. Kathy, Gail, Sarah, Devon. Go ahead, Kathy.
Hi, thank you, Sharon, and thank you for the presentation. If you heard the presentation before this one, the community board is very interested in affordable housing, of course, and mixed and the M1 Crown uses, but in addition, green space. And as your building is designed, I understand that widening sidewalks gives a feel of green space, but what we're looking for is green space that's available on the ground level for all our community members to use. And I think that since you're asking us for what we want you to consider, it's certainly, as Ella Levitt said in the previous presentation, a very high priority. If you're adding 287 units with this building, those people and the rest of the neighborhood need green space to recreate and to relax and to enjoy fresh air. It's very important as we look forward, as we look towards the redevelopment of this neighborhood, that green space is a real priority for many of us. And I just had a question about the current tenants in the strip mall, whether or not they'll be offered the opportunity to take space in your new building, or if they're being helped to find new spaces, because I'm sure that will be a difficult transition for those family-owned businesses that have been in the community for quite some time. Thank you very much.
So with regard to the green space, absolutely. It's something that our building does have a lot of open space, and we're trying to figure out how to, there's an open terrace on top of a second floor that we'd like to try and figure out how to make that open more than just to the tenants of the building. So we're working on that, and it's something that we've already started considering and started analyzing. With regard to the comment about the existing tenants, Mr. Bawabi can really speak to it, but I'll just tell you that he mentioned it in his introduction that he has relationships with these people for a very long time. The anticipation is that we hope to be able to relocate them to another location during construction, which, by the way, construction is probably 5 or 6 years out. Relocate them and then offer them to come back when we do finish the building. The Bawabis have focused on small retail for most of their career, and that's something that they'd like to continue.
Thank you. Gail?
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Sharon. I want to piggyback on the question that Kathy just asked, because that was my concern. When you said that they have, there's a relationship with the tenants, you're talking about the retail tenants, business owners. My concern is the people that work at the stores that are located in the strip mall, that job opportunities will be available to them. And I'm not sure that that's these people that you were talking about. In addition, on the Pacific Street side, there's a housing development directly across the south side of the street. And I'd like to know, has there been any consideration for what would happen with those tenants, or are there going to be any amenities available for them?
With regard to the employees of the space, we're going to do our best to ensure that the businesses stay in business, so that the employees who are employed by those business owners can go with the businesses to their new location. It's not something we directly control, but it's something that through our efforts to help the relocation of the businesses, we hope that that is true as well. With regards to the tenants at the buildings across the street, as mentioned in response to the previous speaker, we hope to be able to try and figure out open space, and that open space would be open to the members of the public or community. We're trying to work it through now so that we can accommodate that. And it's something that we're taking back as part of the comments from this meeting to try and implement into our development if possible.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Hi. Yeah, I'm Sarah. I'm a member of Community Board 8, and I'm also a member of the Crown Heights Tenant Union. And I just wanted to echo everything that Fior had said earlier. You know, this neighborhood, I think it's important that you take into account that this neighborhood has the highest number of evictions in the entire city after the pandemic. It's a high displacement, especially racialized displacement neighborhood, you know, much more so than any other place in the city. This is really important. And the housing that we're lacking the most is low income housing. You know, this project from the map, it looks like it's going to be across from the medical center. And I would suggest that you think not just about housing the doctors of there, but think about housing the nurses and the porters and, you know, the people cleaning up the place, because there's yeah, I mean, the housing crisis, especially in the eastern side of Crown Heights, is intense, and already the pressures are mounting. So I would suggest that you look into the possibility of using a low income housing tax credit. You know, maybe think outside of the box, like MIH. Option 1, like I imagine that you'll probably change over time, but like it doesn't indicate a great direction in terms of what this neighborhood needs. Thank you.
Right. So
Thank
that's
you,
what, sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, so with regard to the MIH, like I said, we're here to discuss, as Mr. Vacconi mentioned, you know, MIH option 4 is what he believes is necessary for the neighborhood, and it's something that we will analyze and see what we can accomplish. We're also happy to speak and look at options that'll allow us to subsidize some of those units so that we can afford to give, you know, larger discounts or lower income available units as well.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein. Devon Jackson. Devon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the presentation. My name is Devon Jackson Perez. I'm an urban farmer who lives, grows, and works as a food system coordinator at Restoration Corporation, which is all walking distance from this location. And while there is definitely a need for additional housing in this area, as a Black woman, I also identify with the resources that will be lost in this space. So there's a pharmacy there, there's a cash checking place there for folks who don't have a bank account. There's multiple food establishments. There's a Dunkin' Donuts, Golden Crust, like things that are cultural foods also for the neighborhood. There's I believe, a rental place where you can rent furniture and electronics, and a beauty store and a Dollar Tree. So like all these resourceful things that our community definitely needs. So I know that it kind of piggybacks on a few comments before this. And I just want to know, like, how do you plan to replace what so many consider as resources?
I can let Mr. Bawabe respond, but again, it's something that we've mentioned. We're not trying to displace them. We're trying to build a building that could have those types of uses as well as additional uses that may be beneficial. So they are tenants that we have longstanding relationships with that will relocate them temporarily and offer them space within our building if that comes to pass and if they're interested.
Thank you. Gail, I wanted to make sure if you had finished your questions, because your hand is still raised, and I'll say the same thing to Fior and to Devon. If you would be so kind as to lower your hand. Elaine?
I think I lowered it, Sharon.
Yep, successful.
Okay.
Fior?
I did have my hand raised. I did raise it, but I don't know if I'm before Elaine or not.
Elaine, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just want to reinforce something. You've heard a lot from the committee tonight, and we've given you a lot of ideas, but they're ideas that we're very committed to. It's not like it's a casual, oh, it would be nice if you could. We're really quite committed to the affordable housing commitment, but we're also, I'm going to say, equally committed to open space. And although a terrace is nice, it certainly doesn't speak for my request for open space. That's community open space that people can actually kick a soccer ball with their kids. Something that is very easy to get to. It's accessible, it's accommodating, and it welcomes the neighborhood there. It's really an area that is absent any open space. So as you are going forward, although we've seen your design, I'm hoping that it's early enough in the process for you to consider and perhaps reconsider better, larger, real open space. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elaine. Fior?
Yes, I just wanted to say that there would be an offering of the space to the current tenants that are there. What I'm afraid of, yeah, there could be an offer, but will it be affordable? And a lot of times, many times, developers promise, and those promises never come to fruition. So that's why we continuously are asking the same questions.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Fior. Gib?
Just briefly on the subject of open space, I just want to be very clear. We can talk about the things the committee has adopted in terms of resolutions and the community board has adopted, and the things individually that we feel very strongly about. But we don't have resolutions as the committee or as the community board that call for particular amounts of open space given over as part of new development. It might be something we want to discuss as a committee, but before we make statements saying this is important to us, and it's a very, I have to point out, these are not settled questions the committee has actually ever debated and made resolutions around. In the case of this particular building, it's 2 blocks away from St. John's Park and 1 block away from the Amani Gardens, and across the street from Harmony Park as well. And so the statement was made, there's no open space near this, but that I think that may not be true. So I think we just need to, I just think we need to discuss this more as a committee before so we have a position as a committee that's been defined. Thanks.
Sharon, you're on mute. You're muted, Sharon.
Trying to leave out ambient noises, i.e. fire trucks. Kathy, you've asked your question. You have anything else to say?
I have a response. I'd like just to respond very quickly to Gib. Gib, I couldn't agree with you more that this is an issue the committee should discuss. And I think just the same way we've made it a priority as a committee to commit to more inclusionary, more affordable housing. I think if we had a conversation as a committee, we have very little leverage with this city, given a survey of what city property is owned and the likelihood that budgets would allow more parks to be built. We have some leverage, as we do with affordable housing, to ask the developers to contribute to our communities in this way. And given the population increase that's brought to the neighborhood by the developers, it seems to me something that we should be advocating for in a cohesive way. So I completely agree with you that this is an issue. And Sharon, I think this is a super important issue for the committee to take up so that we could discuss the possibility of including this as a policy recommendation, should that be what the committee decides is important to it. So I agree with Gib, but I also think we have leverage in very few circumstances, and I think we should take advantage of it when we do. Thank you.
So noted. All right, gentlemen, I'm going to give you an opportunity for last words because I see no other questions from our participants.
Us or the community board?
The presenters. I see no other questions coming from those who are attending or
Okay,
raised
no.
hands, I should say.
I don't think we have any final, thoughts or comments. I want to thank this community board. We do follow the M Crown. I have been following it for a while and listening in and researching it. We're happy to come and talk to you. And the reason we're here before you is because this is a community board that has definitive ideas and has well thought out direction. And we look forward to working with you on this project.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for coming to us, and thank you for noting our hard, consistent, persistent work on what we would like to see in our community as people come before us for zoning changes and variances. So with that, I'd like to know if the presenters are present for 953 Dean Street. Okay, so I would say that is a no, not hearing anyone raise voices. So at this juncture, I'd consider old business. No one with old business. New business? Go ahead, Elaine and Kathy.
Well, given
Elaine, then Kathy, I should say.
Okay, thank you. Well, given the last conversation on open space, may we ask you, Sharon, to place it on the item of open space in terms of a committee priority on the agenda for one of our next meetings, or perhaps the next meeting? Is this how it's done?
So noted.
Thank
We
you.
actually have plans, which I'm going to discuss for new business for the next meeting. So it'll be the meeting after that.
Okay.
Kathy,
Thank you.
go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sharon. I just wanted to publicly have it on record that I think we all appreciate the return of the chat and thank whatever process and IRSA for reinstating that. I think we've managed to behave ourselves tonight. So see, we can do it if we try really hard. Thank you.
And I would say that the continuance of the openness of the chat is hinged upon us continuing to behave ourselves. And that is everyone included.
And some of us have turned our screens on too at your request.
Sounds good. You know, we're all working together. So my new business issue is that we've had a request from the borough president. I'm sure you guys clicked on the link that you found and across the board about the borough president's comprehensive plan. Yes? All 120 pages of it? Oh, come on, guys. So here's what's going to happen next month. DCP, along with a representative from the borough president's office, is going to come here to present the comprehensive plan. Specifically, they're interested in coming before land use because right now land use is where there is a lot of activity across all the community boards. So between now and then, probably tomorrow, we'll have more direction and we will receive copies of the comprehensive plan for review. But that is the agenda, sole agenda item, unless we receive a land use item that is calendared for the month of April. I'm not hearing yippee. Where's the excitement? Did I just take all the air out of the room? All right, well, you know, we'll all have to read. Mr. Vacconi, we'll all have to read and we'll all have to be able to contribute. So that's one thing. Gib, go ahead, and then I have something else.
Thanks. Just to close things out with respect to the previous presentation, I want to just make this point again. The fact that we heard this presentation this evening means that almost certainly means that there are other property owners that have similar designs. And I really do believe that we need to put together an effort to talk about that specific zone, that M1 zone along Atlantic Avenue that's further to the east. It's kind of, hang on one second. You know, it's sort of down to Kingston, halfway between Albany and Kingston on one side, and the other side runs out to Saratoga Avenue. And I think we need to consider that zone in the same way that we considered the M Crown zone, and would suggest that we kind of do it in the same way. I think we kind of need a subcommittee to have that discussion, and it can include, the topics that came up tonight about affordability, about uses, about open space, because I expect we'll get more private applications down there if the past is any guide.
Right, Gib. So as you know, the chair makes the determination about special committees. So I am sure I see Gail, vice chair, is present today. So there will be a huddle in the future. I think it's a great idea. And even as we do this, because our borders are only Rochester, to consider that we have a conversation, I believe is CB 16 to the east of us and CB 3 to the north of us. So then more fun things that I want to ask the committee. So we've had a presentation with very specific zoning. And one of the things DCP wants to know, because last year, or I should say earlier in the year, everybody had questions. They wanted to learn. They didn't understand. If we just go to DCP and say, we need more training, then we're going to get the presentations that we've had before. What things are we interested in a community as a committee to learn about so that we can be more effective in our roles as participants? So I see the hand of the mutual screen of Jack or Nix. Who's going to ask? Go ahead, Jack.
Hi, I was wondering if we could define affordability in a different way that the city defines affordability, like maybe based on income. Can we make that recommendation?
Affordability is a matter of legislation, especially when it comes to MIH. What we can talk about is, my opinion, what we can talk about is how we'd like it to more closely hew to what wages are, because there seems to be a major disconnect between wages in our community and what the affordability limits are. Gib, I saw that raised forehead. What do you have to say about it? I'm inviting you into this conversation.
Well, in fact, I think affordability is defined by income. The real issue is, do we want to take on some broader fight about the definition of affordability, or do we want to try to use the tools that are out there and whatever other leverage we have to get the very best terms we can find in terms of deep affordability for the people who are most likely to be displaced? That's the approach that has been taken in other private applications. And I would say in those instances, we found that developers will agree to terms that are superior to what would be available under MIH. So it's a way that we may be able to get a better result in terms of being able to have deeper affordability in new projects.
Okay, I'm going to go to Mimi next. And if Jack or Nix, it looks like you raised your hand again. So Mimi first and then Nix.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Oh, great. I just wanted to hopefully also put on the agenda and give this is just to answer you also. Yeah, we do want to waste our time fighting for deeper affordability and for more affordable apartments. It is something that this community board and this committee should be doing, because that is what we keep continually hearing from our community members. When I look, and this is something that you can explain to me maybe another time. I don't want to take up the meeting because I think that we should actually have a meeting that is dedicated to this. But when I look at the MIH option 1 and I look at option 3, I kind of like those a lot better than option 4. Although you said earlier tonight that option 4 is what we usually recommend. So I think that just sort of like how we talked about the green space and coming into an agreement within the committee as to what we want to ask for, I think that we need to maybe do that in regards to the MIH and affordability and exactly what we want to ask developers for going forward. So I guess I'm asking to put that on the agenda at some point.
Okay, and as Kathy just put in the chat, and what I mentioned before is that we have questions about how we can use zoning and what various zonings mean to each other. So certainly an educational process will lead to a fruitful discussion. We have been able as a board to achieve great affordability with I won't say great, better affordability by having discussions with developers. So we definitely have to employ that tool as well, because that's one of the advantages we have, given how we're inserted in the EULA process. Nix, go ahead.
Just in regards to like when we keep talking about affordable housing, like I just went to a meeting which was organized by Crystal Hudson about investing in Black Brooklyn at Pratt last Monday. And Ron Schiffman was there, and I admired his whole like understanding and explanation of the falseness of what we call affordable housing, like based on the average medium income, which is not based on the neighborhood's income, which is based on the census of like Westchester, New York, whatnot. And I'm just referring to my memory, as I'm just really passionately trying to advocate for like true affordable, like even Section 8. We never really talk about Section 8 housing in these new buildings. I am not anti new construction. I just really want it to be accessible to people. And I would love to invite, to be able to invite Ron Schiffman to one of our meetings, because there's a lot of knowledge, and he really kept saying change is inevitable, but there is a wonderful way of including change and people, not pushing them out. And when it comes to the project 1720 Atlantic Avenue, I happen to know that neighborhood well, and there are so many small businesses, and yet again the applicant really was just very fishy about taking care of the existing businesses, the existing neighborhood, and was just like an affordability and was just like looking to profit. So I would love our community board, land use committee, to really reconsider what we call affordable and what we call accessible for our neighborhood. And thank you, and thank you.
And if I could just redefine what I was saying before, when I said affordability based on income, I don't mean AMI, I mean individual income.
Thank you, guys.
Sorry, thank you.
Okay, guys, so I'm going to ask the question again so we have a little bit more clarity, so that I might be able to provide an response to possible trainings by DCP. What is it that you're interested in? Go ahead, Kathy.
Well, I put it in the chat, but I think it would be great to have a session on MIH so that we understood all the levels and all the intricacies. I think there are 2 or 3 members of the committee who are really well versed in this, but it would be great for the rest of us to feel as fluent or almost as fluent as those members. That would be great, and give our priorities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
I'm sorry, Sharon. I also put in the chat that the event that Nix mentioned that was sponsored by council members Hudson and Pratt, I wasn't able to go, but if I can volunteer to call and see if it was recorded, and perhaps then send the link to you and you could distribute it. So
Thank you.
I'll take.
I would appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Am I missing any hands? Does anyone have any questions? Comments? More comments? All right. At this juncture, I would entertain a motion for adjournment. Jack, I'm presuming that you asked your question and you didn't lower your hand?
No, I just had one. If there was anybody new here that is, you know, we have to have 3 meetings and then we're in, but nobody took roll call. So I didn't know. I know it's really late in the game now, but that if anyone was new here, that they would be marked down as present.
And Jack, of course, I made notations of who was in the room.
All right, sorry, I was 2 minutes late and I might have missed something. So I'm sorry if I'm,
No
sorry.
worries.
Yeah.
No worries.
Okay, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. We are adjourned. Have a good evening.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.